So the first blog is just a basic, easy ground beef, which is the one that we actually used when we did our trail. And I'm going to go over the ingredients, cooking, dehydrating, and then I'll show you actually using them in the field. So a nice and simple recipe. Ground beef, you want to get above 75% lean. Too much fat content can risk the dehydrated meat going rancid. I have breadcrumbs to mine. That helps when you're rehydrating the actual beef. One of the terms they use for dehydrated ground beef is gravel, because even when it's rehydrated, the texture can be a bit lumpy. By adding breadcrumbs, when it rehydrates, it absorbs more moisture and makes it a bit more softer and palatable. Oil, that's just to cook the beef in. Some seasoning garlic powder, and you'll see I also use seasoned breadcrumbs just to add some extra flavour. And I like to add some onion to mine. That's purely by choice. It's not something you have to do. I'm going to use 2 pounds of beef for this recipe. Obviously you can make it in any quantity that you prefer. But for every pound of beef, you want to add half a cup of breadcrumbs. Mix the breadcrumbs into the beef before you cook it. I like garlic, so I'm going to add some garlic powder to the mixture as well. I've heated the pan with a little oil, and I've added the onion which I chopped up because I wanted to soften them before I start cooking the meat. Now that they've softened up some, I'm going to add the meat to the pan and then cook it until it's brown. Periodically throughout cooking, I'm going to remove the pan and actually drain off this fat. I'm also going to use some tissue or some kitchen towel to dab on the top of the cooking meat to reduce the fat on top. I want to reduce as much of the fat content as possible. Once the meat is cooked and it's cooled off some, I'm going to put it into a strainer just to take out the last of the fat. So now that the beef has cooled and drained, I'm ready to put it into the dehydrator. I got this dehydrator for about $50. It's nothing fancy, but it certainly works for what I need to use it for. I also got some of these trays. I think they're for drying fruit actually, and that means that when I put the beef in, it's not going to fall through the trays or get stuck in them. And all I'm going to do is spoon the beef onto the tray and then spread it out evenly. So now the beef's ready to start dehydrating. I'm going to set the temperature on this to 145, that's Fahrenheit, or 63 degrees Celsius, and then I'm going to leave it for about 6 hours. So the beef's been drying about 6 hours. During that time, about every 2 hours, I just took a fork, moved the beef around to ensure that it all dries through and doesn't clump together. And you can see it's well dried out, almost like a gravelly texture. Now I've let it cool, finished drying inside the dehydrator, and what I'll do now is actually bag it up. I'm going to store this beef in vacuum sealed packets inside the freezer. That'll allow me to keep them for a long period of time, and then when I go on a hike for a couple of days or more, I just grab one of these pouches or however many I want, throw them in my pack, and they're going to last easily for the duration of the trip. Now for our through hike, I actually made this beef months in advance, and I have had it in the freezer in packets like this ready. And then I had it shipped to me in the resupply, and there was no issues with that meat when it was dehydrated. It never went off, and we never had any illness issues or anything. So it's going to last quite a long time, either just in this granular form like this in Ziplocs, or if you do like I do, vacuum seal it and then keep it in the freezer until you need it. This vacuum sealer I actually purchased at Walmart. It wasn't that expensive. And there you go. I'll just trim the top here. I'll label it with the date that it was made and what it is. And then it's ready for storage until I go hiking.